Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my top 40 running back rankings and tiers for the 2024 fantasy football season. But before we could break down all of these running back rankings and tiers in depth, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. And if you'd like to get access to my PPR rankings and cheat sheet, they're available on Patreon for $7.50. So without further ado, let's get into my top 40 running back rankings and tiers for the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin in the S tier at number 1 with Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. CMC to me is the biggest slam dunk Shaquille O'Neal style number 1 overall pick. To me, I understand that he has that calf strain and that could impact the start of his season, but based on every single report that I have read, Christian McCaffrey is going to be good to go for week number 1. The Madden curse might scare some people, but ultimately, if there's anyone that would be able to overcome the Madden curse, it would be Christian McCaffrey. This dude has been downright phenomenal every single season he has been healthy ever since he entered into the NFL in 2017. His only seasons where he ranked outside the top 8 were in 2020 and 2021, where he played 3 and 7 games. He was the running back 1 last year, the running back 2 in PPR in 2022. He has had 3 total finishes as the running back 1, and I think he does it yet again in San Francisco this season. At number 2, we got Bijan Robinson. Now, ranking Bijan and Breece Hall, they're both incredibly close to me. Bijan Robinson, I understand that last year definitely wasn't the best based upon where you had drafted him, and a lot of that blame can be thrown on Arthur Smith's criminal usage of Bijan Robinson, but I believe in 2024, with the new head coach, the new offensive coordinator, the new quarterback in Kirk Thuggins, Coles Cash, Kirk Cousins, I believe that Bijan Robinson is in a situation that is going to breed success. He was the running back 12 finish in PPR last season. I think he has the upside to be the running back 1. His pass catching ability is off of the charts, and I believe if he is given an uptick in carries, this guy could easily be the running back 1 in Atlanta. At number 3, we got Breece Hall of the New York Jumbo Jets. Now, despite the fact that the Jets as a whole absolutely went down the drain after the injury to Aaron Rodgers, the Achilles heel of the team was Aaron Rodgers' Achilles heel, but ultimately Breece Hall was still able to finish top 5 at the running back position, despite only having the quarterback play of Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian. This guy was able to dominate defenses 50 Shades of Grey style, and he didn't even have over 1,000 rushing yards. I think that Breece Hall should be able to see a jump in touchdowns from last season, where he scored 9 total touchdowns. I think he get 12 or maybe even 15. He should rush for over 1,000 yards, and he saw 76 receptions last season. I think we see an even better season out of Breece Hall, and even if Aaron Rodgers isn't the old Aaron Rodgers, I still think Breece Hall should finish very clearly as a top 3 running back. Moving into the A tier, tier number 2, we got Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts, currently my running back number 4. Now, based upon where you drafted Jonathan Taylor last season, before the injury, if you drafted him super early, you were disappointed, and even if you got him fallen down draft boards, you were definitely disappointed. But this is a guy that in 2021 was the running back 1. After the 2021 fantasy football season, everyone was getting down on their knees, ready to fondle the Johnson of Jonathan Taylor. But after 2 down years, people are ready to panic on Jonathan Taylor. Both of those seasons you could attribute the injuries to. Last season, when he was healthy, he was putting up solid performances. Anthony Richardson is going to take this offense to another level that we could not see last season after he ended up getting hurt. I understand Anthony Richardson might vulture a couple touchdowns, but Jonathan Taylor is a guy that has scored 20 touchdowns in one season in 2021. Jonathan Taylor is a very competent pass catching back. He's not going to catch 60 or 70 balls, but he could get to the 40 or 50 number, and that would be fantastic for us. I love the skill set of Jonathan Taylor, and I'm not going to let Anthony Richardson ruin the fun. I'm not going to panic because of Anthony Richardson. At number 5, we got Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs, just like Christian McCaffrey, currently dealing with an injury, but Jahmyr Gibbs' injury, we have a little bit more clarity on. We know Christian McCaffrey is going to be more than likely good to go for week number 1, but Jahmyr Gibbs with the hamstring is in line to practice next week. Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that some people worry about because David Montgomery is never going to fully disappear, hit you with the John Cena move, but I do really believe that Jahmyr Gibbs has insane upside. We see that the second year for running backs is typically when the running backs are able to excel, to blast off, have huge seasons. The guy was a top 10 running back last year, despite David Montgomery scoring so many touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs is the best pass-catching running back on this team. He's going to see a bunch of carries game in and game out. And while David Montgomery is going to be there, they are going to peel back on his touches. I'm a huge fan of Jahmyr this year, and he is my running back number 5. At number 6, to close out the A tier, we got Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Saquon Barkley's best finishes were in 2022 and in 2018 when he was a rookie. Last year, he was the running back 16, but you can blame basically everyone on the reason why Saquon Barkley didn't end up having a great year. Besides, on Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones goes down. Tommy DeVito, the Italian stallion, is looking decent for the team, and the offensive line is complete and utter dog shit. It's a turnstile. Saquon Barkley is getting mauled behind the offensive line. Now he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, a team with a very strong wall in front of Saquon Barkley. They have a team that is going to score a bunch of points. I think Saquon Barkley might even get in on a tush push or two on his own. He's a competent pass-catching back. People are really just overthinking Saquon Barkley because he burned them last season. Moving to the B tier, this is where we have running back 7 through 10. At number 7, we have Kyren Williams. Now, Kyren Williams is a certified injury worry. He did not end up participating in OTAs. People were starting to panic. But ultimately, for me, Kyren Williams is the definition of upside. Kyren Williams is a guy that, when he is healthy, is going to be putting defenses in a chokehold. He was the running back 5 in PPR last season, and he only played in 12 games. Now, obviously, the injury concern is there, right? I am not blind. I'm not Stevie Wonder to the fact that Kyren Williams is a guy with injury risk. If he's able to stay healthy, Kyren Williams is the type of guy, though, that could finish as the running back number 1 and be the sole reason as to why you win your league. And while I am far from someone that loves handcuffing my own running backs, if you're worried about Kyren Williams, just draft Blake Corum as well. And if Kyren Williams goes down, Blake Corum will have that top 12 upside weekly because of how great this Rams offense is going to be. I want pieces of the Rams offense because of how much of a genius Sean McVay is. I understand that Kyren Williams' workload is going to get trickled down because of the addition of Blake Corum, but I also think that's going to lead to Kyren Williams being able to stay healthy. At number 8, we got Devon Achane, running back 24 last season in terms of finish, but he was much better in terms of PPR points per game. This is a guy that could take a 3-yard dump off from Tua Tagovailoa directly to the fucking crib, jump in, hold my dick, Marshawn Lynch style, up against the New Orleans Saints. Devon Achane has insane upside. He's basically like Jahmyr Gibbs. He has the David Montgomery with him, the Raheem Mostert. But the difference between David Montgomery and Raheem Mostert is that Raheem Mostert is ancient and has a laundry list of injuries on his resume. Now, I'm not going to guarantee that Raheem Mostert gets hurt, and spoiler alert, I like Raheem Mostert a ton at ADP, and he is ranked ahead of consensus in my rankings. We just have to acknowledge that. Devon Achane should see a big bump up in terms of touches. We just talked about with Gibbs how in the second year is where we really start to see the push for the running backs in fantasy football. This is Achane's second year, and I think that I want to be investing in great offenses, and that is exactly what the Dolphins are. At number 9, we got Derrick Henry of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Derrick Henry was kind of meh last season. There were a lot of games where the Tennessee Titans were getting absolutely bent over a fucking table without the use of lube, and they had to pull Derrick Henry out and throw Tajay Spears in late in games. That won't be an issue, though, this year in Baltimore, as the Ravens are going to be all over teams. They're going to run up the score, and Derrick Henry can get those free cheesy points late on in the game. I understand that Derrick Henry doesn't have glue or stickum on his hands, and he's going to get 50-plus receptions, but he's been closer to that 30 number the last couple of years, which is a complete and utter 180 from what we saw earlier on in his career, where he had butterfingers and couldn't even catch a fucking ball if it had glue stuck to it, right? He just could not do anything. I believe in 2024, while he's not going to become Christian McCaffrey or anything, the passes will be thrown his way. He's a running back that, because of how good the Baltimore Ravens are, could score 20-plus touchdowns. Gus Edwards scored over 10 touchdowns last season, and Gus Edwards is legitimately a sack of shit when you compare him to Derrick Henry, and there's very little competition behind Henry. At number 10, we got Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. I was pretty high on Pacheco last season, and he ended up paying off for me, but what we saw towards the end of last season is what has me even more confident in Isaiah Pacheco this season. Isaiah Pacheco started to catch a lot more passes towards the end of last season, and with the exit of Jerick McKinnon, I believe that Isaiah Pacheco is going to be seeing a lot more targets this season. Isaiah Pacheco is attached to one of the best, if not the best offense in the NFL that is going to move the ball as easy as 1, 2, 3, ABC. Shout out Michael Jackson. So Isaiah Pacheco is a guy that is going to have a lot of great opportunities. He's the best goal line back, and if they start using him like a workhorse running back, he could even beat out my ranking as the running back number 10. At number 11, we got Josh Jacobs, formerly of the Las Vegas Raiders, now of the Green Bay Packers. Now, Josh Jacobs was a guy that a lot of people were given the Suka Lamink special to last season, me included, and obviously things didn't go too well in Viva Las Vegas. In 2022, he was the running back number 3. Last season, running back 23, he ends up getting hurt and missing the final games of the season, where Zamir White kind of popped off. Now, Josh Jacobs was basically held hostage by the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy G Spot, sucked more cock than Kelsey Monroe out there. And then they transitioned to Aiden O'Connell. And then the offense, they fire Josh McDaniels. Things start to get better. But by the time things were actually better, Josh Jacobs was already hurt. The defense was able to load the box at a very high rate up against Josh Jacobs because they knew the team wanted to run the ball. Now he's in Green Bay. Sure, is he going to see a crazy amount of carries and touches like he did in Las Vegas? Probably not, but there is still the upside of that because the other running backs behind Josh Jacobs, frankly, just really aren't all that good. Josh Jacobs is a guy that has top 5 upside. We've already seen it before in Las Vegas. I think the efficiency numbers are going to go up in a big way when you compare last season to this season. And I really believe that the Packers are a great offense and that Josh Jacobs is going to get a lot of scoring opportunities in this offense. This is another guy like Saquon Barkley that, while isn't like the best pass catching running back in the NFL on paper, could catch 45 to 55 balls, and you wouldn't really bat an eye. At number 12, we got Travis Etienne. Now, I do have Travis Etienne ranked lower than consensus, but it's not really because I hate Travis Etienne. It's just because I like the other guy slightly better. Again, when you're looking at tier-based rankings, I view these guys all very similarly, right? I could go to sleep tonight, wake up tomorrow, and maybe I move Devon Achane back 2 spots, move Pacheco up, could move Etienne up. It's kind of just fluid in this range. Etienne was the running back 2 last year, right? He was playing on fire. He caught fire, NBA Jam style, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars whole season fell off the edge of the earth. This was a team that we were talking about how, holy shit, they might end up going to the Super Bowl, the #1 seed in the AFC, and then obviously everything goes wrong, and it went so wrong that they didn't even end up making the playoffs. I believe that while Tank Bigsby is kind of getting some hype up, while people are kind of fluffing with the backup running back there, Tank Bigsby, he didn't appear to be worth shit last season, because I like Tank Bigsby going into last season due to Etienne's inability to find the end zone in 2022 in his rookie season. He seems to have completely slashed that narrative, Jason Voorhees style. So I really do think that Travis Etienne feels like a pretty safe bet inside of the second or the third round. Again, I just have him ranked a little bit lower than other people, but that's not meant for me to be super dismissive of Travis Etienne. At number 13, we got James Cook. Now, I was battling in my own brain, the devil versus the angel on my shoulder. Is James Cook a C tier running back or a B tier running back? Now, to many, he might be in the C tier. He seems like the biggest question mark in this range, but we saw last season, once they switched offensive coordinators, that James Cook started to ascend. He started to see a lot more touches game in and game out. That is the same offensive coordinator that is with the team right now. I think that James Cook has a pretty solid stranglehold over this backfield. I think Ray Davis is a talented running back #2, but he's not really going to push over James Cook and overtake James Cook as the lead back on the team. I really do believe that the Buffalo Bills, while they might take a step down on paper, losing Diggs, losing these other players like Gabe Davis, they're still going to be a solid offense. And while James Cook has been iced out of the end zone, Frozone style, I really do believe that James Cook only scored 6 touchdowns in 2023, has a chance to get over 10, maybe even 12, right? He scored 3 touchdowns in 2022, doubled that shit in 2023, double it again, and we get to 12 total touchdowns. Moving now to the C tier, we got running back 14, my main man, Joe Mixon of the Houston Texans. Joe Mixon was great last year in Cincinnati. He has had 3 straight seasons as a top 12 running back. When Joe Mixon has been healthy, he has been productive for fantasy football, despite the woes of the Cincinnati Bengals last season. And there was a lot of woes, like in a Drake song, right? Joe Mixon was still solid, right? When Joe Burrow gets hurt to start off the season, they're not playing well. Mixon's fine. The Bengals figure everything out. Mixon's fine. The Bengals have a down bad end of the season because Joe Burrow's hurt again, and Joe Mixon is fine. Now he gets transitioned onto a team that you can argue on paper is better than the Cincinnati Bengals and the Houston Texans, a team that had Devin Singletary running like prime LaDainian Tomlinson. So Joe Mixon could end up being a top 12 back weekly. While I don't have him ranked that high, it seems very probable that a top 8 finish, just like last season, is also in his cards. At number 15, we got Rachaad with 2 A's White, running back of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Rachaad White was as inefficient as it gets last season. The motherfucker had 272 carries and only 990 rushing yards. He averages 3.6 yards per attempt in 2023, 2022, 3.7 yards per attempt. They lose out on Dave Canales, who was their offensive coordinator last year. They shift to a new offensive coordinator because Canales is now the head coach of the Panthers. So there is some change there that could end up slowing down the offense a little bit, though I do think the offensive line will be better. There is some competition behind Rachaad White, but he is a guy that can catch 60-plus balls, and it wouldn't be all that surprising. So Rachaad White feels fine here. I used to be a little bit higher on him, but he just feels very fair. A lot of the time you see him come off the board as the running back 15, 16, 17, and I'm perfectly fine taking him there. At number 16, we got Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints. Now, this dude's ADP is completely different from website to website. There are times where I see Kamara go in the 3rd round, and I'm like, holy shit, that is way too high for old man Unk Alvin Kamara, even despite the fact that I like him so much. But when you can get him in the late 4th, the 5th round, feels like the sweet spot for Alvin Kamara. Now, Alvin Kamara's efficiency fell off the edge of the earth. This guy was as efficient as using a Snickers bar wrapper as a condom. It just really doesn't work, but he made up for that with the fact that Derek Carr is a check down machine, and it's very likely that Derek Carr is a check down machine yet again. The head coach of this team has just been shitting all over Kendre Miller, giving him the Cleveland Steamer special. They have Jamal Williams, who did not look very good last season. So we're going to see a lot of Alvin Kamara. It's all about the receptions, though, right? Because we saw him last year. He had 180 carries in 13 games for 694 rushing yards, but he had 75 receptions for 466 yards and 6 touchdowns. It all hinges on the receptions. The fact that he's getting older makes me less confident in him, but again, since Derek Carr is such a check down merchant, he should be fine. At running back 17, we got Kenneth Walker. I did move him into this range. He's had back-to-back finishes in PPR as the running back 19, suffered from a couple of injuries last year. Now, my biggest worry a couple of days ago would have been that, hey, they still got Zach Charbonnet, but the more and more I think about it, I realize that this team has kind of pushed Kenneth Walker to being the guy, and that the new coaching staff there isn't associated. They didn't make the draft pick of Walker or Zach Charbonnet. So if they like Walker, they could really just push Zach Charbonnet straight to the side. They could throw him in the cuck chair and let Kenneth Walker go to work. The guy is kind of an all-or-nothing running back, in my opinion. If you watch his games a lot of the time, this dude is either barreling through the defense for 15 yards or getting stuffed off the jump like Geno hands him the ball, and there's 7 men surrounding him like a bukkake session, and it doesn't go well. The offensive line there is very suspect, but if they want to get Kenneth Walker involved as much as they do, then I think Kenneth Walker feels fine here as a C-tier back. Moving now into the D tier, this is really the last tier at the running back position where I feel confident in other running backs after this, but it starts to become just a conglomerate of names. There's a lot more guys in the tiers as we get deeper. At number 18, we got Aaron Jones. Now, if you drafted Aaron Jones last year, you ended up feeling like you were stuffed and not in a fun way. It was really, really bad. Aaron Jones was hurt. And then what the Packers do is they bring him back, but they don't really bring him back because they're kind of just easing him in using the just the tip technique. He finishes as the running back 41, but he is a very strong finish to the season, which tells me that Aaron Jones isn't magically washed. Now, he's getting to a point where he's getting old to where that also kind of bakes into my rankings like, hey, maybe this is the season where everything goes wrong, because a lot of the times the running back falling off with age, it could just come from out of nowhere, like an RKO from Randy Orton. They seem fine, and then you get a left hand from Poatan to send you to the fucking shadow realm. So Aaron Jones is a guy that I like. I saw him perform pretty well last season. I understand that the cold like Minnesota Vikings do love to pass the ball at a very high clip, but I think with mono man Sam Darnold under center, they are going to rely a lot more on the run. Aaron Jones is a competent pass catching back as well. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Aaron Jones. At number 19, we got David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions. We already had happen what would have caused David Montgomery to be a top 5 running back, and that's Jahmyr Gibbs getting hurt. Now, I get he's coming back to practice, but maybe he re-aggravates that injury during the season. Maybe he misses even more time, and then David Montgomery would be a top 5 running back every single fucking week and twice on Sunday in my rankings because of how great the Lions offense is, how many points they're going to score, and how great the offensive line is. Because once you get Jahmyr Gibbs out of there, knock on wood, we're not rooting for injuries here, Montgomery is jolted into an amazing situation. Now, say Jahmyr Gibbs is healthy the whole season, which is very plausible, like you're on the Mythbusters. David Montgomery will still be a fine running back 2 for you weekly who has multiple touchdown upside in any given game. So if you draft him here, you're fine with him. He was kind of a meh pick, but if things kind of go his way, he could end up beating out his ranking by a wide margin. At number 20, we got Ramondre Stevenson. Now, the quarterback situation in New England feels kind of up in the air. Is it going to be Draco May, or is it going to end up being Jacoby Brissett? Either way, Ramondre Stevenson should be fine. The fact that I've seen some positive things about Antonio Gibson kind of does worry me for Stevenson's pass-catching ability, because this is a guy that caught 69 balls. Very nice, I like, in 2022. If you drafted him last season when I advised you to, obviously that didn't end up paying dividends. He only scored 4 touchdowns, 619 rushing yards. Shout out Rey Mysterio, 238 receiving yards. Shit wasn't sweet for Stevenson, but the whole team was trash. It was Bailey Zappi, it was Mac Jones, Bill Belichick. It was a shit show. The team paid Ramondre Stevenson a big bag. They gave him the big money, which tells me they still believe in him, so you can't really drop him too far in the rankings. At number 21, we got Zamir White of the Los Vegas Raiders. Now, Zamir White on tape is kind of boring, right? He doesn't really do anything crazy. You never really see him fucking hurdle over someone or stiff arm someone, then juke another guy out, kick someone in the nuts, and run into the end zone, right? But it's a very limited sample size on Zamir White last season, but he was very productive when he was healthy. Now, the problem with Zamir White is the Raiders are probably not going to be very good. I understand that Gardner Minshew is going to start, but that could end up going the way of Aiden O'Connell eventually. Maybe it's like a half and half split. Zamir White is good. I think he's a good running back. He feels like back in the day, the quintessential running back that 2 years ago, we would have drafted in like the 3rd or the 4th round, maybe even the 2nd round, because we saw a strong end to last season. And then, holy shit, now he's the lead back. Let's just fondle this guy's nuts. Now, he goes later. He feels fine at ADP. I would like to see him catch more passes, but with how the head coach Pierce there has talked up him getting 200, 300 rushing attempts on volume alone, volume is very key in fantasy football. And the volume could very much be there for Zamir White, and I don't really see any of the running backs behind him beating him out and becoming the lead back on the team. At number 22, we got Najee Harris. Now, in my opinion, Jaylen Warren is the better running back compared to Najee Harris, but now Jaylen Warren is hurt. Now, he isn't technically so hurt to where he's going to miss like half of the season or something like that, but when you go and read it, the fact that he could be ready for the opener with a hamstring, the fact that maybe he misses the first 2, maybe even 3 weeks really does concern me. And if Najee Harris gets off on the right foot, then Najee Harris could easily just be the lead back for the whole season if he just maintains that because he's got such a lead over Jaylen Warren. Najee Harris in his rookie year was really good. He was a top 3 running back in fantasy football, but after that, he continued to fall and fall. His efficiency numbers dipped, but I do believe that with a better quarterback play, I understand that Arthur Smith is as suspect as it gets. We all fucking hate Arthur Smith. We boo when we see him on the television. But he has produced solid running backs before. Let's see what happens with Najee. There's so many reports of the offseason. He's in the best shape of his life, this, that, and the other thing. Do I fully buy into that? No. But as the running back 22, it doesn't really feel like I have him ranked too high. So now we move into the next tier, which would be the A, B, C, D, E tier. We got Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos. Now, preseason week 2 was a little bit suspect as we saw a lot more touches for Jaleel McLaughlin, but Javonte Williams is a guy that I'm taking a stand on. I'm going to be higher than consensus. I'm 5 spots higher than consensus right now in terms of ranking him at the running back position. Sean Payton has churned out solid fantasy football running backs for a very long time, and Sean Payton offenses target the running back at an incredibly high clip. Javonte Williams is now over a year plus removed from the ACL, and last year, coming off the ACL injury, they gave this guy over 200 attempts, and he had 47 receptions. While the production wasn't there because he was coming into the season banged up, the team was kind of mid. Do I expect the Denver Broncos to become the Kansas City Chiefs and become one of the best offenses in the NFL with Bo Nix and friends? Probably fucking not. But if they're just better than last year and Javonte is more healthy, being the lead back on the team, catching a bunch of passes, it works for fantasy. At number 24, to close out the E tier, we got Raheem the Wet Dream Mostert. Now, if you listened to me last year as I was just singing beautifully, waxing poetically, I was singing fucking opera like Justin Tucker or like that old guy, Junior from The Sopranos, like Uncle June from The Sopranos, right? The dude who loves to eat box. He just like me for real. Raheem Mostert, number 3 at the running back position last year. And now, do I think that's going to happen again? No, because he scored 21 touchdowns. That's probably not going to happen again. But if something happened to Achane, he instantly enters the top 5, top 8 of my rankings weekly. And if nothing happens to Achane, he's probably just going to finish around the running back 24 range, so I wouldn't swing and miss. He has been injury prone in the past, but his last 2 seasons, he played 15 and 16 games. The Dolphins should be productive. Raheem Mostert will tag in a couple of times, and he could still score 8, 9, 10 touchdowns, even being the secondary guy in Miami. The upside to me is just so high to where I like taking him where he's going. Plus, while we all kind of project Achane to be the guy, would anyone be completely shocked if Mostert ended up being the guy early on and then maybe they transition more to Achane later? I wouldn't be that surprised, even though I do like Achane a lot better. Moving now to the next tier at the running back position, we got the F tier with James Conner and Jonathan Brooks. Now, James Conner is getting older. Trey Benson looked kind of so-so week 1 of preseason. He looked like he had fucking, what would you even call it? It looked like he had weights strapped to his legs, right? And he was running in slow motion. Preseason week 2, he looks a little bit better. James Conner, when playing, has been very productive for fantasy football. Great pass catcher on a solid offense with the Arizona Cardinals. Could be catching a bunch of balls here from Kyler Murray. So you can't really bury him too much in the rankings. But at the same time, Trey Benson is by far and away the best running back competing with James Conner in his tenure in Arizona. He's not like Amari DiMarcado or these other scrubs that they've had behind James Conner. So there's a lot more room for him to potentially lose his job. Now, I think 2025 is when James Conner gets overtook more than likely compared to this season. But with the possibility looming above us, it just feels like you can't really rank him much higher than this. At 26, we got Jonathan Brooks. Now, Jonathan Brooks has some very solid tape you can watch in college at Texas. He ends up tearing his ACL. The fact is he's not expected to be ready until week 3 or 4, according to Dave Canales. Now, when you just tear the ACL, it's a lot easier to come back compared to when you tear the ACL, the LCL, the PCL, the fucking YMCA, right? It ends up hurting you a lot more. It's harder to come back. Now, Jonathan Brooks could come back and be a straight-up dud, but based upon what I saw at the collegiate level, I think Jonathan Brooks can play ball, and I think the Carolina Panthers are going to be better than you expect them to be. This is a guy that could end up being flex-worthy weekly for your team when healthy. Now, if you're in a league that doesn't have an IR spot, I am much less likely to draft Jonathan Brooks because while I really like the upside that Brooks possesses, burning a hole on my bench every single week, having to hold him. And then it's not like in week 4, if he comes back, say he missed the first 3 weeks, he comes back week 4, I'm just fucking throwing him out there to the Wolves in his first ever NFL start. That seems a little bit crazy, but he's definitely better than Chuba Hubbard and has some solid pass catching ability as well. So I'm fine drafting Jonathan Brooks and taking that high upside shot, assuming he falls into a range where you feel comfortable selecting him and assuming you have an IR spot in your league. Moving now to the G tier, like a G6. We got Jaylen Warren. Now, Jaylen Warren, we already read. The hamstring could be ready for season opener. He could be. He could not be. It's a wazi. It's a woozy. Is he in or he's out? Now, Jaylen Warren, again, looks better than Najee Harris to me. Definitely. But if Najee gets up on the right foot and Jaylen Warren's not there and they're nervous with him and they're easing him in, they're using the just the tip technique we talked about with Aaron Jones instead of just shoving him in there balls deep, then Jaylen Warren could end up for the first couple of weeks just being a 0. Arthur Smith, again, pretty solid in the run game. I understand that he shafted Bijan Robinson, but this could be a very productive running back room in Pittsburgh altogether, especially with Jaylen Warren's pass catching ability. So I'm not ready to full on fade Jaylen Warren, but right now I can't rank him any higher than this. At 28, we got Zach Moss. Now, your guess is kind of as good as mine on who the number 1 running back on the Bengals will end up being. Now, we saw Zach Moss last year take over when Jonathan Taylor went down in Indianapolis, and when he was playing as the guy, he looked very good. He was not only just effective, he was able to catch balls out of the backfield, he was great running the ball, has a nose for the end zone. Now, Zach Moss isn't some big motherfucker compared to Chase Brown, but I do think that Zach Moss, talent level-wise, is better than Chase Brown. So this is probably something we're not going to know until the start of the season who ends up being the number 1 guy. The initial depth chart has Zach Moss as the guy, but if you take the initial depth chart as the gospel, when in reality a bunch of fucking interns who don't know ball make the graphic, oh, who's the running back 1? It really doesn't matter at all. We saw last year Baker Mayfield and that scrub from Florida drafted a couple years ago listed both Kyle Trask as the quarterback 1 interchangeably, right? The depth chart before like the start of the season means something, but like from week 1 of preseason doesn't mean diddly squat. Zach Moss, to me, better than Chase Brown. So I've got him ranked a couple slots ahead of Chase Brown, but it's really just who comes off the board later, right? If you miss on Zach Moss, take Chase Brown. If you took Zach Moss, then don't take Chase Brown. Whoever ends up being the lead back, though, in a Cincinnati backfield that saw the carcass of Joe Mixon be productive, it's going to be good. At number 29, we got DeAndre Swift. Now, this is a guy that I am all out on. I have closed the case on DeAndre Swift. I am not going to be touching him with a 10-foot pole due to where I have him ranked. There's a lot of people that have him ranked much higher than this, or in the early 20s. I got him at running back 29. Why? Because Caleb Williams at college didn't check the ball down. Why? Because this could end up being a triple-headed backfield with the running backs that are also on the team. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Khalil Herbert or Roschon Johnson are 100% better than DeAndre Swift, but they might be on a similar level, especially Khalil Herbert, which could lead to this just being a backfield of fucking death, a fiery backfield of death where you go to start Swift has the bad game, Herbert has the good game. Then the next week, you're like, okay, it's time to start Herbert, and then Swift has the good game, right? Or maybe they all just eat enough into each other's workload where none of them end up being good. I project the Bears offense to be good. If there's some injuries around Swift, he could ascend, but as of right now, I don't really see him being all that great again. He had such a great position last year in Philadelphia and only finished as the running back 17. At number 30 and 31, we got the Tennessee guys, Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. Now, Tony Pollard was a guy that I was relatively high on last season, and the consensus was very high on, right? Tony Pollard, we see him deep down the annals of last season or of 2022, have a great season, right? And it's like, oh shit, it's Tony Pollard season. And then he comes out, he's flopping like a fish. Towards the end of the last season, he looks a lot better. Now, I think there's just as good of a chance that Tajay is the number one guy as there is that Tony Pollard is the number one guy. But my hunch tells me, just like with Zach Moss and Chase Brown, that Zach Moss will start off being the guy. Najee Harris will start off being the guy. And I believe Tony Pollard will start off being the guy first. The difference here, though, is ADP. Right now, looking at Fantasy Pros, where I have all the stats pulled up, Tony Pollard's ADP is 79. Tajay Spears is 95. So I'll probably end up with more Tajay compared to Tony Pollard. But if we see what Tony Pollard did last season and towards the end, and we transition to that, oh, he comes out the gate looking like that, then he could definitely fend off a guy like Tajay Spears, both proficient in the pass-catching game, though Tony Pollard just could not find the end zone last season. He was straight up allergic to it. I do believe this is going to look to be a more pass-heavy offense compared to what you were used to with Vrabel and friends in Tennessee with the new coaching change. Again, will that completely sacrifice Tajay Spears or Tony Pollard? Of course not. I like the Titans offense. I think they're going to have a little bit more upside than people believe. I think Will Levis is much better, the Mayo Man himself, than people give him credit for. But again, like, while I like Tajay Spears, I'm not going to rank him ahead of Tony Pollard strictly because if Tony Pollard just gets off a little bit better early on, then he will be able to hold off Tajay Spears. At number 32, we got Brian Robinson Jr. of the Washington Commanders. This is a guy that's pretty underrated as a whole in terms of his receiving ability, but they bring in Austin Eckler, and that kind of bites him in the ass because of the receiving upside. Now, Austin Eckler looked as washed as you could possibly be. He looked like Shaq on the Celtics, but there's a chance that, hey, the Chargers were just so ass, straight up ass, like Violet Myers, and then you mix that with the quarterback play, the offensive line, and maybe now Washington, another shitty offensive line, but maybe he just figures it out being more of the pass-catching back. Sure, I get that, but if Brian Robinson is good and we end up seeing that Austin Eckler looks the same as last year, he could definitely outpace where I have him ranked, but again, I don't want to rank him much higher because Eckler is there. But he is going to be scoring more touchdowns in terms of just goal line work. At number 33, we got Chase Brown. Very limited sample size of Chase Brown, but it does seem like the beat reporters really like him. The coaches really like him. And there's probably just going to be the 1B to Zach Moss's 1A. But since I believe Zach Moss will be the 1A, I've got him a little bit higher. Moving now to the H tier. Now, I like a bunch of running backs in this range. I actually like all of these running backs. But the reason why a lot of these guys are not ranked higher is because of the question on what their role is going to be. Now, Jerome Ford, I know coming out the jump, coming out the gate, he is going to be in first place, right? When the horses start racing, he's getting the 100 fucking meter lead. He is coming out Usain Bolt style, right? But Nick Chubb could come back and be healthy. Now, I don't think he's going to come back and look like his old self. I think that Jerome Ford could end up being the lead back for the whole season. And I love Jerome Ford. He's one of my favorite late round backs. But I can't rank him higher because if Nick Chubb does come back and has that superhuman fucking regenerative ability like he's the Wolverine or something, then Jerome Ford could end up not paying off as to how much I like him. But again, I do really like him and considered even bumping him up to the G tier. If you guys want my rankings, make sure you check them out on Patreon. I update them all the time. Every couple of days, I update them. At number 35, we got Devin Singletary of the New York Football Giants. Devin Singletary, another guy that could easily lose his job, get his job stolen by Tyron Tracy. Now, Tracy, it looked really bad, right? He gets hurt in practice. They put the cast on him, and it's like, okay, this guy is fucked. It's over. Finito. Roll the curtains, roll the credits. And then he fucking, like, it's like the 50 Cent, right? He gets shot, and he's still breathing, right? And boom, it seems like he's going to be fine. Now, Singletary was good last year in Houston, but now you go from Houston, who was just a solid team, to go into the Giants, which could be the worst fucking team in the National Football League. But if you need a guy, like you're going, say, you go 0 running back, right? You go wide receiver heavy, or you go hero running back, and you want a guy that you feel confident in, like you draft the Jonathan Brooks type, you're taking the higher upside shots at running back, Devin Singletary could be a productive guy early on for you. But I do think Tracy has a good shot to take his job. At 36, we got Zeke. Now, a couple of months ago, I was really high on Zeke, but then I kind of started to realize that Rico Dowdle's probably better than him, but I don't think I can rate and rank Rico Dowdle higher than him, because more than likely Zeke will just end up being the guy. Zeke is more of the touchdown guy compared to Rico Dowdle, but I just think at this point in Zeke's career, he's not overrated because no one is rating Zeke highly, right? No one, like maybe besides Jerry Jones, is ready to rank Zeke and pretend like he's his old self. He looked better than people give him credit for last season, but he only averaged 3.5 yards per attempt. And that's just not very good at all. But that was in New England compared to Dallas. And obviously, those are very, very different situations. His last year in Dallas, though, 2022, only 3.8 yards per carry. So it's not like it was way better. But he could easily score 10 or more touchdowns. Touchdowns are very important in fantasy as well. And if he's just kind of getting those cheap touchdowns weekly, he'll end up finishing around this range. At number 37, we got Austin Ekeler. Now, early on in the offseason, I started drafting Austin Ekeler a decent amount in best ball, and I'm still fine taking him in best ball over on Underdog Fantasy, link in the video description. And the sponsor of today's video, if you're new to Underdog Fantasy, or click on the link in the video description using promo code Notorious, you'll receive a bonus cash of up to $1,000, plus you'll receive a special pick for week number 1, like Lamar Jackson over half of a yard. On Underdog Fantasy, it's the best place to prepare for your fantasy football draft, because you can do best ball drafts on there for money. It's not like you're drafting up against the computer, or you're drafting up against a bunch of schlubs that want to take a kicker in the first round. And their big tournament, Best Ball Mania, $25 to enter, $1.5 million to first place. Hopefully one of you guys can take home that tournament, or maybe I can. And they also have smaller tournaments on there as well. Again, promo code Notorious, or click on the link in the video description. If you're a first-time depositor, you get access to all of that. So Austin Ekeler, running back 25 last year. If you drafted him number 1, number 2, number 3 overall, you were sleeping with the fishes. You were down bad, not just down bad, you were down astronomical, right? The guy was literally running like there was cement in his cleats. He was running like he was trying to put his is it the feet or the hands? Maybe it's the hands. Fuck, so that joke kind of sucks. But on like it is the hands. On the Hollywood, like, star of whatever the fuck that's called. I don't even know off the top of my head, but the Walk of Stars or whatever the fuck they want to call that. Ekeler was running like that. Like, they had just everything was attached to him. Like, he was running like he was training to be in the fucking SEAL Team 6 to go take out Osama or something. So Austin Ekeler looked really trash last season, 3.5 yards per attempt. He's a guy that could easily have hit the age clip. He's been in the NFL since 2017. He may be finished. At pick 85, I'm never going to take him. That's where his ADP is. Sometimes he goes later than that, though. I like Jaden Stormy Daniels, but Austin Ekeler, I just don't really feel a need to draft him. Like, in best ball, sure, go ahead. Like, you're just hunting for that upside. But when are you ever going to start Austin Ekeler unless he really transforms himself to be way better than Brian Robinson? And I don't really see that happening. At number 38, we got Gus Edwards, and we have J.K. Dobbins at 41, so we're going to discuss them at the exact same time. I like Gus better than Dobbins because J.K. Dobbins gets hurt all the time. He gets hurt. He'll get hurt today. Like, he'll wake up this morning, roll off the bed wrong, and his fucking arm will be stuck in the backboard, or whatever you call it, the baseboard, whatever, on your bed, and he rolls off the bed, right? Or maybe he walks into the Chargers facility on Halloween and they do one of those pranks where someone's like sitting in like a statue and he jumps out and then J.K. Dobbins trips and falls and his leg is fucking behind his head. So that's concerning, right? But Dobbins is better than Edwards. The difference is Edwards has been healthy. They're both linked to their former offensive coordinator in Greg Roman, who is now the offensive coordinator of the Chargers. And you know the Chargers want to run the ball, so you can't put these guys down too far in the rankings, but you also can't rank them too high up because the split is kind of questionable, and the fact that the team's probably going to be pretty shit is also questionable. At number 39, we got Rico Dowdle. We discussed him with Zeke. Basically, I think Rico Dowdle's better than Zeke. But does the team think that? I don't know. I think it could take a while for Rico Dowdle to surpass Zeke, and maybe it's a little too late, like you drafted him and then you cut him by like week 6. He's not doing too much. And then like he ends up being a league winner in week 17, but you cut him, your asshole league mate picks him up, and then he smacks you across the face. He Hulk smashes you through the dirt. He picks you up like Hulk picked up Loki, and it just hurts a lot. So I like Dowdle, but again, I'm not going to push him too much higher. At 40, we got Blake Corum. Feels like one of the best handcuffs because of Kyren Williams' injury history. He's going to get some touches even when Kyren is playing, but you're never really going to want to play him when Kyren's healthy unless he sees more touches than I even previously believed, but he does feel like a premier handcuff. And again, 41 is J.K. Dobbins of the LA Chargers. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying today's video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Smash that like button like it owes you some money. I love you guys all so much. I hope you all have a great rest of your guys' day. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen it already. And we'll either be live later tonight or there will be a video, more than likely a video, but we will be ripping a couple of lives before the season starts. During the season, we are live every single Thursday and every single Sunday before kickoff. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great guys' day. Thank you guys for all of the support recently. It means the fucking world to me. We have seen so much growth in August, and we're just going to keep growing. Pause. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Click on one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen it already. Love you guys. Peace out. Bye.